All right. Thanks for the introduction, Lacy. And so many of you may know there are several federally funded centers that are available to really support states, universities, and local education agencies in designing and implementing programs that help students transition from public school to post-school outcomes or to post-school opportunities. And one of the newest centers is the Progress Center. And the Progress Center provides information, resources, tools, and technical assistance to support local educators, which is a little different than some of the current centers. And we focus on grades kindergarten through transition. And the center's focus on students across the grade span is really intentional because we know that planning for successful post-school outcomes actually begins in the very early grades. It's not just what happens in the secondary setting when the transition plan is developed as part of the IEP. And so because of our broad scope, the kindergarten to transition age, we actually work really closely with other federally funded centers like INTACT, or the National Center, Technical Assistance Center on Transition, to promote successful transition from secondary settings to institutions of higher ed. And I do have a flyer that's in the handout section, so feel free to download that to learn more. Now, the Progress Center uses what we refer to as a success formula to promote progress for students with disabilities. And as you can see by the formula, to ensure access to free, appropriate public education, which we refer to as FAPE, schools must actually develop and implement high-quality educational programming. And you'll see that multiplication symbol. It's really important because it demonstrates the need for both of these to occur for us to produce the results that we're looking for. And so for most secondary students with disabilities, this begins with the development of an IEP, which includes a transition plan that's reasonably calculated to enable a child to make progress in light of the child's circumstances. And that language actually comes from the 2017 Supreme Court decision in Indrew. Now, I want to point out one component of IDEA that's been shown to really promote successful transition to post-secondary education opportunities for students with disabilities. You'll see that transition services refer to this coordinated set of activities within a results-oriented process that help facilitate the movement from school really to this post-secondary education. And you'll notice that it's not just post-secondary education, but employment, independent living, and community participation. And we know that this transition or this success in post-secondary education is more than just academic success, right, in public schools. And so for successful transition, what we know from recent research is that K-12 activities and opportunities that best predict post-secondary education enrollment and attainment sort of are narrowed down to some key variables. Rowe and colleagues recently released the most updated review of these variables and found 6 research-based practices that I'll share today for improving students with disabilities transition from high school to post-secondary education. And interestingly, if you look at these, they all appear to be focused on employment. But what their findings found is that for kids to be successful in college and university settings, they need to develop these underlying employability and workforce skills that are attained through occupational courses, paid employment, and vocational education. And they sort of highlight or help students develop the essential college readiness skills like effective communication, information use, working with others, resource management, and critical thinking. Now, the strongest predictor that we do see in terms of that transition and success in post-secondary education is the students' engagement and access to general education. And it's general education in which they have a lot of access to peers without disabilities. Now, we know inclusion in general education with supplemental supports is generally outlined in the IEP in the transition plan, but it also has to do with how the school is setting up its overall access to high quality instruction within the core programming. Now, the transition plan is another predictor, and that's also outlined in, or the transition program is really outlined in the IEP and the transition plan. We know that that's essential for students to really successfully move from this public institution to a secondary college or other types of institutions of higher ed. And as mentioned earlier, the program is really this coordinated set of activities that may include academic instruction, but also things like that are essential for post-secondary education success, like self-determination, social skills, and practice-based opportunities for developing the essential independent living skills to live on campus, for example. And finally, this last one, youth autonomy, and we know that that is highly correlated with enrollment in post-secondary education, is really necessary for students to successfully transition into the other parts, right, of the post-secondary education experience, like independent living, volunteering, employment, and even recreation and leisure. And there's one last variable that I really want to highlight today, and that's expectations. And we know that parents' belief that their child will attend a post-secondary institution were highly correlated with those outcomes in recent research. And we've learned that family expectations can increase if they have more knowledge about the available opportunities. And that's what's really exciting about what we're sharing today. There are some other resources that I'd just like to point out. The Think College and the Transition and Post-Secondary Programs for Students with Intellectual Disabilities, the model demos that you're going to hear about today, can really help us build families and educators' knowledge about these opportunities, which increase the expectations that they'll be able to attend and be successful in those opportunities. Now, I want to thank you all again for inviting me and allowing me to be here. And similar to what Trey said, is I just feel free to contact me with any questions or resources, or feel free to include those in the Q&A chat box. But I know you're probably here more to learn about the exciting programs that are happening that are helping students with disabilities be successful in these post-secondary institutions. So I'm excited today to introduce the directors of the 4-year comprehensive transition programs for students with disabilities.